The girl walked silently along the crowded streets, her small shoes tapping softly on the pavement. The city was alive with noise, cars honking, people talking, and the distant hum of construction. But for her, the sounds of the city were like a background to her own thoughts. She held her little brother's hand tightly, making sure he stayed close to her. He was only 6 and had a soft curiosity about the world that reminded her of how she once felt. Before life became so heavy, their home was not far. But the journey felt long with the weight of empty stomachs and the chill in the air. Their mother worked all day at a small cleaning job, and their father had gone away for work, leaving them to manage by themselves. She carried more than just her brother's hand. She carried the responsibility of keeping him safe, fed, and hopeful in a world that often seemed harsh. Passing a corner, the girl noticed a bakery she had walked by many times before. The display was always dazzling, with pastries stacked high, shining under warm lights. Today, however, something about the bakery caught her attention more than usual. Her stomach twisted at the sight. She pressed her face gently against the glass, trying not to breathe too loudly, as if the pastries might disappear if she startled them. Chocolate cakes, golden croissants, delicate tarts, and pastries decorated with glistening fruits filled the shelves. Each one looked more tempting than the last. She could almost smell the sweetness, even through the glass. Her little brother tugged at her sleeve, whispering that he was hungry. She smiled faintly and squeezed his hand.
I know,
She whispered. Soon, okay? We'll eat soon. But she knew that soon meant waiting until their mother returned with her wages, which would be barely enough for bread. The rich world inside the bakery was so close, yet so far away. She felt a pang in her chest, a mixture of longing and helplessness. Her eyes lingered on a tiny pastry shaped like a heart. It seemed almost alive with color and care. She imagined holding it, tasting the sweet layers, feeling the warmth and softness melt in her mouth. Her mind wandered to moments she had dreamed about in secret, having enough to eat. A cozy bed, and the freedom to enjoy simple joys without fear or hunger. For a while, she just watched, letting herself escape into the scene behind the glass. Then, a sudden movement made her flinch. The bakery door opened and a tall man walked in, sharply dressed, moving with a confidence that demanded attention. She had seen him before in news stories and in pictures. He was the owner of the bakery, a billionaire who had built a fortune not just from pastries but from investments, buildings, and businesses. He looked cold and precise, choosing pastries with care, speaking to the staff with a voice that could make anyone freeze. Her heart raced. She had never been this close to someone so powerful and untouchable. The man selected a few items, checking them as if each decision carried the weight of the world. The girl held her breath, watching every movement, elating the way the light reflected off his polished shoes and the soft rustle of his suit as he turned. It felt like watching a performance, one she could never be a part of. Then, a small accident occurred. One of the staff dropped a pastry near the door, and it slid across the floor toward her. The girl's eyes widened. She looked at it, then at the man, and back at the pastry. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, sharp and demanding. Her hands trembled. She knew she shouldn't, but the small piece of pastry looked like a gift from the universe. A tiny chance to satisfy a need she had carried for days. She bent down quickly, picked it up, and held it to her chest. The man glanced in her direction. For a moment, their eyes met. She froze, unsure if he had noticed her, and slowly she stepped back into the shadow of the building, clutching the pastry. Her brother whispered, "Did he see us?" She shook her head, trying to appear calm. Inside, her heart pounded. She felt guilty, but also relieved that at least for a moment, her hunger was eased. They continued walking, silent, except for the soft sound of their steps on the street. She glanced back at the bakery. The man was gone now, but something lingered in her mind, the sense that she had been seen, that her small act had brushed against the life of someone so different from her own. As they turned a corner, the girl's thoughts drifted to her home. Their small apartment was warm enough, but it smelled faintly of old cooking and damp walls. Her mother would be home soon, tired and weary, carrying the weight of the day's labor. She imagined their mother's tired smile, the way she always tried to make the little home feel cozy despite everything. Her brother chattered about small things: a bird he saw on the roof, a cat he wanted to chase, but the girl was lost in her own thoughts, replaying the scene at the bakery. She wondered about the man, about the pastries, and about the lives that were so far apart yet connected for a fleeting moment through hunger, curiosity, and a quiet act of taking what she needed. When they reached home, the girl carefully set the pastry on a small plate. Her brother's eyes lit up, and she offered him the first bite. His face broke into a smile, simple and pure, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was not just the taste of the pastry, but the moment of relief, of providing something, however small, for someone she loved. They sat together on the worn couch, sharing the sweet treat in silence, letting the world outside continue its noise and rush without them. For a little while, they were safe and satisfied, cocooned in their own quiet world. The girl knew that life would not be easy. Hunger would come again, struggles would continue, and the gap between her world and the wealthy world she had glimpsed would remain. But for now, she allowed herself to imagine a life where such pastries were not just a rare treasure, but a part of daily life. A life where she and her brother could walk freely, unafraid, with enough to eat and a sense of belonging. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the small apartment, she held her brother close and whispered a promise to herself. She would find a way to bridge the gap between hunger and plenty, to create moments of joy for herself and her family, even in the smallest ways. The city lights flickered on outside the window, and the distant hum of the bustling streets was now joined by the quiet rhythm of their breathing. For the girl, the night was filled with dreams of possibility, of courage, and of the silent hope that one day the world's sweetness would be within her reach, without the need for shadows or stolen moments. In her heart, the tiny pastry became a symbol not of theft, but of survival, of longing, and of the quiet strength she carried in every step she took. The next morning, the girl woke before sunrise. The streets were quieter, the city just beginning to stir awake. She dressed quickly in her worn clothes and checked on her little brother, who was still asleep, curled up under a thin blanket. She brushed his hair gently, careful not to wake him, and whispered that she would go out and try to find some food for both of them. Her mind raced with ideas, none of which were easy.
Oh.
But hunger demanded action. The bakery from yesterday came back to her thoughts. She remembered the tall man, the pastries, in the fleeting moment where she felt both fear and wonder. She hesitated, wondering if she should approach it again. Could she? Should she? But hunger and need had a way of pushing her beyond fear. She knew the city was full of risks, yet something inside her whispered that today might be different. She held her brother's hand and stepped into the chilly morning air, feeling the pavement beneath her feet and the quiet hum of life beginning to awaken around her as they walked. She watched the people who passed by. Some moved quickly, heads down, lost in their phones. Others strolled leisurely, chatting, carrying shopping bags, their faces relaxed and carefree. She noticed the contrasts: the people with more than they could carry, and those like her, scraping by. But she focused on her small mission, her need, and the hope that the bakery might provide a moment of relief. Her eyes scanned every window, every corner, every passerby. When she finally saw the bakery, she froze for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. It looked the same, polished and golden in the morning light. Yet it felt different somehow, like it held secrets just out of reach. She edged closer, holding her brother a little tighter, and noticed a few pastries sitting outside on a small table, likely placed for display. She thought quickly, remembering yesterday when a single pastry had saved them from hunger for a while. Her stomach tightened, but she knew she had to be careful. Hunger had a way of making her bold, yet she was also cautious. Understanding that she had to survive without drawing attention that could bring trouble, as she observed, the bakery door opened, and the billionaire stepped out. His suit crisp and his expression focused. She froze, afraid he might notice her. She ducked behind a column, her small frame hidden, her heart beating so loudly she thought he might hear it. She watched him carefully, his movements precise and deliberate, a man who seemed to control everything around him. Today, though, he seemed distracted, inspecting some notes on a small tablet, and he didn't see her. Her brother tugged at her sleeve. "Can we go now?" he whispered. She nodded, leading him closer to the pastries, keeping them both hidden behind a nearby trash bin. She picked up a small pastry and quickly broke it into pieces for them to share. Her brother's eyes lit up and he whispered a thank you. She smiled, feeling a tiny spark of warmth in her chest. They ate quietly, savoring each bite, knowing it might be the only meal until their mother returned. As they finished, the girl noticed something strange. The billionaire, who had returned inside the bakery, seemed to be watching them, or at least moving in a way that suggested awareness. She ducked instinctively, pulling her brother behind her. But then she saw something she didn't expect. Instead of anger, there was curiosity in his eyes. For a moment, their worlds collided silently across the street: a wealthy man with the power to change lives, and a small girl trying to survive. The moment was fleeting, but it left a mark, a feeling that she could not explain. She led her brother away, walking quickly but carefully. As they turned a corner, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We have to be careful," she told him softly. "We can't always take what we need from others. We have to find ways to survive on our own too." He nodded, his small hand clutching hers tightly. Unaware of the danger, but trusting her entirely, the girl's mind wandered back to the man in the bakery. Who was he really? She had seen the news, read stories about his wealth and his cold demeanor. Yet there was something in the way he had paused, even for a moment, that suggested he noticed more than he let on. Maybe, just maybe, he was capable of kindness, or maybe he was only curious about her boldness. She didn't know, and part of her feared finding out. But another part was drawn to the mystery. The rest of the day was spent in careful observation. She found ways to help her family survive small moments, collecting discarded food from local markets, watching for opportunities to do odd jobs for neighbors, and sneaking in small moments of hope. Each action, though small, gave her a sense of control over a life that often seemed unpredictable and harsh. Hunger still gnawed at her, but she was learning to balance need with caution, courage with intelligence. That evening, she returned home with a small bag of food she had managed to gather. Her mother arrived shortly after, weary but smiling faintly at the sight of the two children. They shared a modest meal, talking softly about the day's events. The girl careful not to mention the bakery, knowing it was a secret she carried alone. The little pastry from the morning remained in her mind, not as a moment of shame, but as a symbol of survival, resilience, and the unexpected glimpses of kindness that sometimes appeared in a harsh world. Night fell, and the girl lay awake for a while, listening to the soft sounds of the city beyond her window. Her brother slept soundly beside her, and she imagined a future where such struggles were no longer a daily battle. She pictured a life where hunger was a distant memory, where small joys like pastries could be enjoyed freely, without fear or shame. And in the back of her mind, she wondered about the man in the bakery, the one who had noticed her without judging, the one who seemed like he could hold the power to change a life with just a simple choice, as sleep finally claimed her. The girl made a quiet promise to herself. She would continue to navigate this world with caution, courage, and hope. She would find ways to help her family, to protect her brother, and to reach for small moments of happiness whenever she could. And maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to connect with that fleeting kindness she had glimpsed, to show that even in a city divided by wealth and need, human connection could still bloom in the quietest, most unexpected moments. The days passed slowly, each one blending into the next with the same rhythm of struggle and survival. The girl continued her routine, taking care of her brother, helping her mother with chores, and finding ways to gather food and small comforts whenever possible. But the bakery and its world of golden pastries remained in her mind, a place that held a strange mix of fear, fascination, and longing. She found herself drawn to it more and more. Not for theft this time, but for observation, to understand the life of those who lived in wealth and comforts so far removed from her own. One afternoon, she and her brother walked past the bakery again. The sunlight poured over the glass windows, reflecting the colorful pastries inside. She noticed the staff arranging the displays with careful hands, the way they polished the counters, and the soft chime of the door whenever a customer entered. Her heart skipped a little, remembering the day she had been noticed, even if briefly, by the billionaire who owned the place. Today she decided to linger a little longer, hiding behind a nearby post, careful not to be seen. Her little brother was restless. He fidgeted and whispered, asking questions about the man and the pastries. She explained what she could without revealing the private details she had observed. She told him stories, making the world inside the bakery feel magical and alive. A place of wonders they might only dream of visiting fully one day. Sharing these small stories became a ritual, something to distract them both from the constant worry of hunger and the endless days of toil inside the bakery. The billionaire moved with precision, checking each display, inspecting pastries, and speaking briefly with the staff. He had a presence that demanded attention, yet she noticed small details that no one else seemed to. The way his eyes softened when a young child walked in with a parent. The slight smile he gave to the baker when a new creation was perfect. The way he paused for a moment to appreciate a display before making a decision. She realized that the world of wealth, though often harsh and unforgiving, also contained moments of care and pride, moments that were hidden beneath the surface. The girl started visiting the bakery more frequently, always at a distance, observing, learning. She began to notice patterns, the times when deliveries arrived, the moments when the staff relaxed, and the rare occasions when the billionaire allowed a small indulgence for himself. She saw him in private moments, quietly enjoying a pastry alone, savoring it slowly. A small rebellion against the structured life he maintained. It fascinated her that even someone so powerful had moments of human weakness, moments that made him relatable despite the vast gap between their lives. One day, as she watched from a shadowed corner, she saw a delivery van arrive. Boxes were brought in, and the staff worked quickly to unpack fresh pastries. A few items tumbled to the floor, almost unnoticed in the flurry of activity. Her heart raced, tempted as always, but she resisted. She realized that her interest had shifted from mere survival to understanding, to quietly learning the world she could not yet enter. Her brother tugged at her sleeve, sensing her distraction, and she reminded herself gently that their safety came first. Later that evening, they returned home with a small collection of food she had gathered from the neighborhood, grateful for the little victories. Her mother arrived exhausted from her day, her face drawn with fatigue, but still showing warmth when she saw them. They shared the food quietly, speaking in soft tones about small events of the day. The girl held her brother's hand under the table, feeling the bond of protection and care that anchored her to her mission of survival. She thought about the bakery, about the billionaire, and about the tiny sparks of connection that had begun to form across the divide of wealth and need. Over the next few days, her visits to the bakery became a regular routine, a form of silent observation. She noticed the staff, their interactions with the billionaire, and the small ways in which kindness appeared, even in a world built on strict rules and expectations. She saw a young apprentice struggling with a difficult pastry, only to be quietly encouraged by the billionaire's subtle gestures. She saw a customer return a slightly damaged item, and how patiently the staff corrected it, maintaining dignity for everyone involved. These small observations built a picture of a world that was complex, full of rules, yet also full of moments where human compassion broke through. One afternoon, she lingered longer than usual, watching as the billionaire moved from counter to counter. She noticed a small slip of paper fall from his pocket, unnoticed in his busy movements. Curious, she picked it up once he had turned away and glanced at it. It was a note with a list of ingredients, perhaps a reminder for future baking. She carefully placed it back where it had been, feeling a mix of guilt and fascination. The act was not theft, yet it was intimate. A quiet connection to the life she observed but could not touch. That evening, she shared her day with her brother, who listened intently to her descriptions of the bakery's world. Her stories painted a picture of a place that was both foreign and magical, full of routines, surprises, and small moments of beauty. She realized that she had started to see patterns, to understand the rhythms of the bakery. and to anticipate the moments when kindness might appear, even in small, fleeting ways. This understanding gave her a sense of power, a quiet confidence in a life that often felt dominated by uncertainty. As night fell, she lay beside her brother, thinking about the delicate balance of their lives. Hunger and hardship were constant, yet moments of observation, curiosity, and connection provided a fragile hope. She imagined what it would be like to step fully into the bakery, to participate in the world she had observed from afar. Yet she knew that such a step required patience, courage, and careful timing. For now, she allowed herself to dream quietly, to hold on to the hope that the world of sweetness and light she had glimpsed could one day be a part of her reality in the darkness. She whispered to herself a promise. She would continue to observe, to learn, to understand the rhythms of the world she admired. She would protect her brother, care for her family, and find ways to survive with dignity. And one day, when the time was right, she might cross the boundary that separated hunger from plenty, poverty from wealth, and fear from understanding. Until then, she would watch, quietly, patiently, letting the lessons of the bakery shape her heart and mind, guiding her toward a future filled with hope, resilience, and the subtle power of human connection. The following week, the girl found herself drawn to the bakery more often, not because of hunger this time, but because of curiosity. She wanted to understand the life inside the bakery, the people who worked there, and the man who seemed so powerful yet quietly observant. Each day, she lingered nearby, watching the routines, the small gestures, and the patterns that shaped the place. She started noticing little things that most people overlooked, like how the staff communicated silently with gestures, how the shelves were arranged by color and size, and how the billionaire seemed to move with both authority and care. One afternoon, the girl's gaze met the billionaire's across the street. She froze for a moment, unsure if he had seen her or was simply looking past. Then she noticed something unusual. Instead of turning away or showing displeasure, he paused, his eyes holding a hint of curiosity. He studied her quietly, as if trying to understand why she was there day after day. The girl's heart skipped. She ducked slightly, not out of fear this time, but instinct. There was no anger in his expression, only interest, measured and calm. Her brother tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Did he see us?" She shook her head, trying to appear calm, even though her chest was racing. She realized that she had been noticed in a different way than before. She was not invisible anymore, yet the attention was not threatening. There was something in the way he observed her that hinted at understanding, perhaps even empathy, and it unsettled her in a way she did not expect. Over the next few days, the girl's visits became more deliberate. She stayed in the shadows, but allowed herself to observe more openly. She learned the staff's routines, the timing of deliveries, and the moments when the billionaire allowed small indulgences for himself. She saw him quietly smile at a child who entered with a parent, saw him appreciate the small achievements of the apprentice bakers, and observed him pausing to savor a pastry alone, lost in thought. These glimpses of humanity fascinated her. He was not just a figure of wealth and power. He was a man capable of noticing life's small details. One afternoon, the billionaire left the bakery briefly and returned carrying a small box of pastries. She noticed him placing it carefully outside the door, looking around as if to see if anyone was watching. Her eyes widened. Could it be for her? She stayed hidden, unsure what to do, her stomach twisting with hope and hesitation. After a few moments, she realized the box had been left unattended. Hunger gnawed at her, yet she hesitated, unsure if taking it would be safe. Finally, her need overcame fear. She crept closer, picked up a small pastry, and held it carefully. Her heart pounded. She felt a strange mix of relief and curiosity. Who had left this? Why had it been left in a place so easily found? Her brother looked at her with wide eyes. "Can we eat it?" he whispered. She nodded and broke it into small pieces for him, feeling a small warmth spread through her chest. As they ate, she looked back toward the bakery, expecting to see someone scolding them, but there was no one. The world seemed to pause for a moment, allowing them this tiny joy. It was not just about the food. It was about being noticed, about connection, about the fragile bridge forming between her world and the one inside the bakery that evening. They returned home with a few supplies she had gathered during the day. Their mother arrived shortly after, tired but smiling faintly, and they shared a modest meal. The girl told her brother stories of the bakery, careful to avoid revealing too much about the pastries left outside. She painted pictures of the routines, the care, and the small kindnesses she had observed. Her brother listened intently, fascinated by the world she described. These stories became a small ritual, a way to escape the harshness of reality. Even if only for a few moments each day, the girl began to notice patterns in the billionaire's behavior. She realized he was observant not just of the bakery, but of the people around him. He seemed to understand human behavior in ways that were subtle, yet powerful. She wondered why he had left the pastries outside. Was it chance, or had he noticed her, the small girl who watched from the shadows? She could not be sure. Yet the act planted a seed of hope in her mind. Perhaps there was a possibility for connection, a chance for understanding, and maybe even kindness. Over the next few days, the girl's quiet observation deepened into reflection. She thought about the stark differences between their lives and the life inside the bakery. She thought about her family, the small apartment, the constant worry, and the moments of joy that existed despite it all. She also thought about the man, his careful movements, and the small gestures that suggested more than wealth, humanity, patience, and the quiet power of observation. These thoughts lingered in her mind, shaping her understanding of the world and her place within it. One evening, as the city lights flickered on, the girl and her brother returned home after a long day. They had managed to gather a few small supplies, enough to share a modest dinner with their mother. Afterward, she lay beside her brother, thinking about the bakery and the mysterious act of kindness. The tiny pastry she had received symbolized more than sustenance. It represented hope, possibility, and the fragile beginnings of a connection that spanned the divide between wealth and poverty. She held on to this thought, letting it guide her imagination and her plans for the days to come. As she drifted to sleep, she promised herself that she would continue to watch, to learn, and to understand the world that had begun to feel less distant and more reachable. She would protect her brother, care for her family, and find ways to navigate life with courage and hope. And perhaps one day, when the timing was right, she might step beyond the shadows, bridging the gap that separated her life from the world of Pastry's wealth and quiet kindness she had begun to understand. The following week, the girl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she approached the bakery again. She had grown accustomed to observing from a distance, but today felt different. Her curiosity had grown stronger, and the small gestures of kindness she had witnessed before gave her a quiet courage. She held her brother's hand tightly, guiding him along the familiar streets, their footsteps light and careful, avoiding drawing attention. As they approached, she saw the billionaire inside the bakery, arranging pastries on a shelf. Their eyes met briefly, and this time he did not look away. There was a subtle nod, a small acknowledgement that made her heart race. It was not grand or dramatic, but in that simple gesture, she felt seen and recognized. She realized that this could be a moment that might change everything. She led her brother to a shadowed corner nearby and watched as he moved through the space with precision and care. Each action deliberate, yet with moments of human warmth. The girl felt a boldness she had never experienced before. She stepped slightly closer to the bakery, careful not to be noticed directly, but close enough to feel the energy of the place. She watched the staff, noticing their interactions. Small smiles exchanged over successful creations, and the quiet guidance given by the billionaire. He seemed less distant today, as if he had sensed her presence over the past days, and was silently accepting it. She wondered why he had left the pastries outside before, and she began to see that it was not an act of random generosity. Perhaps he had noticed her resilience, her careful observation, and her quiet courage. Suddenly, a small child entered the bakery, lost and frightened. The billionaire immediately shifted his attention, kneeling slightly to speak in a calm voice to the child. The girl watched, heart pounding, as he guided the child gently, ensuring comfort and safety. It was a side of him she had not seen before, a combination of authority and care that spoke louder than words. She realized that wealth and power did not define a person as much as their choices and the way they treated others, especially those who needed guidance and protection. Her brother tugged at her sleeve. "Can we get something?" he whispered, eyes wide with curiosity. She shook her head gently, reminding him to be patient. They were not there to take, but to understand, to learn from the moments unfolding before them. The girl felt a stirring of hope, imagining a day when they might participate in this world without fear or hesitation. When hunger would no longer define their actions, she took a deep breath, letting the sight of kindness and careful attention sink into her heart. Later that evening, they returned home with a small bag of food gathered from other parts of the neighborhood. Their mother arrived tired, but smiling faintly, and they shared a modest dinner, speaking softly about the events of the day. The girl described the moments she had observed, the gentle gestures, and the quiet care displayed by the billionaire. Her mother listened, a small smile touching her lips, recognizing the spark of growth and understanding in her daughter. The stories became a shared ritual, a way to escape the harshness of life and to appreciate the small threads of humanity that connected them to the larger world. Over the next few days, the girl continued to watch, learning more about the rhythms and patterns of the bakery. She noticed the staff's routines, the way they communicated, and the quiet gestures of approval or guidance from the billionaire. Each observation added to her understanding, giving her insights into human behavior, patience, and the subtle ways people influence each other. She began to feel a growing connection, not just to the bakery, but to the idea that small actions of kindness could ripple outward and touch lives in unexpected ways. One afternoon, a rare opportunity arose. A delivery arrived late, and the staff was overwhelmed. The girl noticed a small package that had been misplaced, nearly falling to the ground. Without thinking, she stepped closer, retrieved it carefully, and placed it where it belonged. Unnoticed by the staff, but observed by the billionaire, her heart raced. She had acted with courage, combining careful observation with decisive action. He had seen her, truly seen her, and in that moment, she felt a connection forming across the divide between their worlds. That evening, she shared her day with her brother, who listened intently. Fascinated by the moments of bravery and subtle influence she had witnessed, they talked about hope, courage, and the idea that small actions could make a difference. The girl felt a sense of purpose growing within her, understanding that survival was not just about meeting immediate needs, but about learning, observing, and finding ways to influence the world positively. Even in small ways, days turned into weeks, and the bond, though silent and indirect, continued to grow. The billionaire began leaving small gestures of kindness outside the bakery more deliberately, understanding the girl's presence and her quiet resilience. She accepted these with gratitude, but also with thoughtfulness, aware that every action carried meaning and consequence. The exchanges were silent but powerful, building a bridge of understanding and hope between two worlds that often seemed impossible to connect. Finally, one quiet afternoon, she stepped closer than ever before. The bakery door opened, and the billionaire stepped out, noticing her presence. Instead of anger or dismissal, he offered a small smile and a gesture, inviting her to approach. She felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Holding her brother's hand tightly, she walked toward him, the distance between them shrinking with each step. She shared her story briefly, about her family, their struggles, and her desire to learn and survive with dignity. He listened attentively, without judgment. And for the first time, she felt a genuine understanding forming, instead of charity alone. He offered a way to help her family sustainably, an opportunity for her mother to work with the bakery in a small, meaningful role, access to education for the girl, and subtle mentorship moments that would guide her growth. The girl felt a surge of gratitude, her heart lightened not just by the prospect of food, but by the chance to step into a world where kindness, learning, and understanding could shape her future. As she walked home with her brother that evening, a small bag of pastries in hand, she looked back at the bakery with a sense of wonder and hope. The world that had once seemed distant and unreachable now held the possibility of connection, of growth, and of human kindness that transcended wealth and poverty. She realized that the moments of observation, patience, and courage had led to this transformation. A bridge built through silent understanding and careful action. That night, she held her brother close as they drifted to sleep. The city outside continued its noisy rhythm, but inside their small home, there was warmth, safety, and hope. She had learned that human connection, empathy, and quiet courage could create opportunities that even wealth and power alone could not achieve. And as she closed her eyes, she made a promise to herself to continue to act with kindness, to protect her family, and to embrace the opportunities that arose from understanding, patience, and courage. The bakery, the billionaire, and the silent gestures of care had become symbols of hope, guiding her toward a life where hunger and fear were no longer the defining forces, and where human connection and understanding held the true power to transform lives.